Fire me up, baby! Ah! Let's go!
This guy's silky. Oh yeah, today is finally the day. Welcome back to Chicago Hockey Radio. I know it feels like you've been waiting maybe a year, months, years, decades for the Stanley Cup Final to start, but it finally is happening tonight. I'm Lee Grossman. With me, as always, is Justin Lynch. We've also got Tassos Kirkos here, who's going to be joining the program today, as well as Raven Gasser on the ones and twos per usual. We've got an absolutely packed show for you today. We're not just going to be doing Stanley Cup tee-up. We've got Charlie Roumeliotis joining the program in just a few moments, which is really exciting. It's like almost no introduction needed for the guy. I think if you know who we are, you definitely know who Charlie Roumeliotis is. So excited to talk all things Blackhawks with him and do a little Stanley Cup talk with him as well. But before we get into anything, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so that you know when we go live. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, is this guy showing you 5-star rating and review on there, and follow the Instagram at Chicago Hockey Radio as well, just to stay up to date on everything we are doing here on the show. Okay, Justin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing splendid. What a brilliant day to be a Chicago Hockey Radio listener. I mean, this is the Mecca right here, man. I look at the Hawks front, the NHL front. You know, I got Charlie Roumeliotis, the man, the myth, the legend, Charlie Roux. We've been waiting for this one, folks. I can't wait to discuss hockey, discuss Hawks talk with the GOAT himself of Hawks Insiders. And then finally, we've been waiting a week for this. But yes, the Stanley Cup Final does indeed begin tonight. What is this going to be day 3 of previewing this game? But no, looking forward to it. We will be live streaming that one tonight, and can't wait. It should be an absolute cinema final.
Yeah, I'm so excited. It feels like Christmas a little bit. Like I've just been thinking about it for the past 6 days now, and it's finally here. I can't wait. Stream tonight's going to be a lot of fun. So make sure you're there for the stream tonight. Like if you don't have CHR up while you're watching the Stanley Cup Final,
what are you doing?
Are you even watching the Stanley Cup Final?
You don't know puck. Yeah,
I'll say it. So yes, we are very. I'm so pumped for that.
Oh, I can't wait, man. That's gonna be an amazing stream. I have a feeling every single Cup Final stream is gonna be absolutely legendary. God, I can't wait, man. I wish it was starting up right after this show, but we still have all day to look forward to it. But a lot to get to before then, right?
Yeah. We do. And let's get into it.
Yes.
Bit of news to cover. The Blackhawks announced yesterday that they are expanding the Fifth Third Arena. A couple of notable things. The Chicago Steel, they're adding 2 rinks. So obviously expanding in that sense. The Chicago Steel are going to be making the transition to be playing there, which it makes sense.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Because it's like the Rocky or the Wirtz Foundation acquired the Steel, I want to say 2 years ago. And so it does just make sense to have everything together in one spot.
Yep.
Right.
And right away, I automatically think of the advantages that can have. If you look at the Chicago Steel, you could argue there's not a USHL organization that's better at developing NHL talent and prospects than the Chicago Steel. I'd say the US development team is up there as well, but just to have that insight into these prospects, I mean, we've seen some Steel prospects that have been drafted by the Hawks, but I have to think now that probably would ramp up because they're going to have a lot of inside, information on these guys too. Watch them every day at the practice facility. So I think that could provide some competitive advantages as well.
Yeah, I just think it's a big win for hockey in this city specifically. Just moving everything here, it really is going to be turned into a mecca of player development,
Yes.
really. And it's going to be a place that kids want to come to. And so, yeah, I mean, you've got the team and the history, and now you're going to have a facility to match it. I think that would be exciting for any young player.
I wonder if it's going to open up other avenues as well. I mean, we've been talking about this on the show a lot. PWHL, Chicago potential expansion there in the future. Does this expansion potentially present an avenue there down the future? Maybe.
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, and maybe like capacity there is an issue, but it looks like
it's about 2,000.
It looks like this arena is pretty cool. That they're building, So
we'd seen it for a while. If you drive by Fifth Third, like all that land, I've always been wondering like what they've been doing with it. So it's good to see it come to fruition there. And I played there too in high school, so it's good to see that probably the best back facility in the NHL right now. It's only going to get better. So looking forward to it. Good for the Chicago community. Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, it is the moment we have been waiting for. Months and months, studio host for WGN Radio, host of the Blackhawks Breakaway podcast with Pat Boyle, Blackhawks insider extraordinaire, fellow Greek. I don't know what we call you. Jack of all trades, master of all of them, Charlie Roumeliotis. Welcome to Chicago Hockey Radio. Thank you for taking the time today, brother. How are you?
Wow, what an intro. Please temper your expectations on what I might provide in this show.
That's all right.
No, we're happy to have you.
Yes.
Thanks for doing
Welcome.
this.
How are you? How are things?
I'm doing well. I'm glad we were able to finally swing this. I know we tried to do something towards the end of last season.
Yes.
My schedule got a little chaotic, and I was like, let's do a post-season recap. Now the Hawks have their coaching decision made, draft, free agency coming up. So happy to jump on with you boys.
So Charlie, really appreciate it. Let's start here. News of the day yesterday is the Hawks Fifth Third Arena expansion. You were in attendance for the announcement yesterday. Just sort of, what is the news? What does it mean for the Hawks, the general Hawks fan, the diehard Hawks fan? You have the Chicago Steel moving into the city. I know these guys, and myself included, also have some thoughts on maybe some PWHL expansion. But just what is the news yesterday? Sort of explain it maybe in greater detail for those who aren't.
And I'll also add, what does it mean also for the community in the specific area around the United Center?
Yeah, great questions. So first off, let me preface this by saying the Blackhawks already have one of the best practice facilities in the entire NHL. Anytime a team comes through and they have to post up at Fifth Third Arena, the opposing teams are always very impressed about the entire facility, which is no surprise because it got built in 2018, I think.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they're already expanding by 2 rinks, they're adding, really the big prize of that is the championship rink that they're adding, which is going to seat 1,600 people, and then an additional, I think, 400 plus in like the exclusive party deck. But what that does is it puts Chicago into the running, like you mentioned with the PHWL, potentially the expansion, but also the Blackhawks, I think, could now pitch to host one of the World Juniors moving forward, because I think you needed one of those. Yeah, so I think you needed like some of those rinks to be like proper. I don't know how it works, but it puts them in the conversation to do those as well, which I think would be awesome. And so, yeah, we got a tour of it yesterday, and I don't even know what I was expecting. I kind of went in there thinking it was just going to kind of just be, whatever nuts and bolts for, but it was very cool. The renderings that we saw yesterday that they put out were fantastic. And I legitimately think it's probably going to be the best practice facility in the entire NHL once it's up and running in January.
Wow.
Damn. It's already up there, like you said. You talk about it too. I think they're going to have the Hall of Fame there, right? The Blackhawks Hall of Fame. Thoughts on that? Did you already send in your inaugural picks for the first class there? Yeah.
I haven't done it yet because I think the media is going to have a separate vote, so I didn't want to overload it with the fan and the media. So we'll see how that plays out. I like the idea of putting the Centennial Hall of Fame in the Fifth Third Arena. One of the questions we asked Danny and Jamie yesterday during like a little roundtable was, why not have the Hall of Fame at the United Center where fans can go visit it during games or whatever? And they brought up a good point, saying because there are Chicago Bulls games there and also concerts, they didn't want it to be closed off where you can only visit those on game days. So they're like, if you have it at Fifth Third Arena, you can literally go visit year round, and it can just be a free entry, right? So I think that's a cool experience that it'll bring. And by the way, you mentioned the Chicago Steel too. Like, I don't think that part is insignificant either. I know the Wirtz Corporation bought the Chicago Steel a couple years ago, so there is that tie-in. But boy, the Blackhawks scout the USHL a lot, and for them to now have that in their backyard moving forward, I think is going to be pretty significant for their draft process too.
Yeah, and also like to go back to that point about it being like always available because it's despite like the concerts and stuff going on. I saw that they think that it's going to bring in like 1.5 million people per year, and it's like that type of thing has such a big impact on all the fans, like
business.
Yes, and like growing the brand of the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, do you think like that compounded over years will have a large impact on the Blackhawks fan base?
100%. And I think too, in addition to the Fifth Third expansion, once the 1901 West project starts going up, I mean, that land is just going to be hopping, it feels like. And I know it's the project is it's like a 15
like
year
2040 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a long time, but just seeing the progress, like even we were standing on one of the outdoor patios of the Fifth Third Arena expansion, and on the upper level, you can literally see the United Center from where. And so I'm like, once they kind of build around that area, it's to get to the United Center in Fifth Third, they're going to be like, I think you can walk like indoor to get to, it's going to be very easily walkable. So that area is going to be booming several years down the road. And yeah, for the Blackhawks to project 1.5 million fans like going in that area, I think it's incredible.
I don't think there's anybody more happy about this news than Connor Bedard. I mean, he practically lives in that arena, and now it's going to be the best in the NHL, so I'm sure he's thrilled right now. Yeah.
Did you see also like the same day that the Chicago Fire announced that they're going to be building a stadium in that 78 development project area, that plot of land? I just love to see these Chicago teams like investing their own coin into their teams and their communities.
The Sox should take notice.
100%. I did see the White Sox fans are they're the one team that's pretty disappointed with that. But it is cool to see the Chicago sports teams pouring money into how they can grow the community, but also just the respective sport too. So it was kind of interesting that it landed on the same day, because we had known that the Blackhawks were going to be unveiling this tour on June 3rd for a while now. But I don't know if that was intentional to be coincided together, but I thought it was cool that there were two announcements on the same day that was like, hey, look at what the Chicago sports teams are doing here in the city.
Charlie,
go ahead, Tassos.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say Hawks Centennial season coming up. Do you know anything of like, what maybe the team has in store marketing wise, like coming up? Is there going to be any sort of special events or jerseys, or what is the team's or maybe getting better, or what is the team's sort of course of action for 100 years in the National Hockey League?
Yeah, I think they announced the first wave like a couple weeks ago. Obviously the Hall of Fame, all that stuff. But when we were talking to Danny and Jamie yesterday, they had mentioned that they're waiting for the NHL to release the schedule to start announcing some dates of what each game might profile. And so I think once the NHL drops their schedule later, which I think they do like right before the NHL draft or right after the NHL draft somewhere.
I want to say like July 2nd, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I think it's like either before the NHL draft or after. It's sometime in that window. So we'll find out this month. But once those dates get on the calendar, I think you'll start to see the Blackhawks trickle in announce more of what they have planned going into next season.
Is there anything you expect to happen or anything you're sort of anticipating?
I mean, I think the Hall of Fame was the one that I was
the big one.
Yeah, kind of like I felt like there would be some sort of Ring of Honor type thing. And so that obviously serves as that. Not sure about any other significant outside of, I'm sure they'll have a unique jersey and logo, all that stuff that I think I'm excited to see what that looks like, but nothing to report as far as concrete details.
I was going to say, I did see Duncan Keith hanging around Chicago a few weeks back. Nothing potentially cooking there, or is that just a coincidence?
So Kane was back too.
Yeah.
He was back for a little bit too, but he wasn't doing stuff with the Blackhawks. But.
Yeah.
Well, Kane spends his off seasons here, so he's back in Chicago for because he trains here, and I know he has a place that he's been working on up north. But I think Keith was in town to help the Blackhawks promote the Hall of Fame. Okay. Yeah, and so I think that's why he was in town. But soon enough he'll have his jersey up there.
That's what I was good. That's what I was alluding to. Thank you for answering that for me.
So the centennial season, obviously a big deal. They're gonna do their marketing stuff and really try to get the fans excited. But obviously the most important thing being how well the team's able to perform. I'm sure everybody wants to see progress. They just made a couple of moves as far as in the coaching department, bringing in Jeff Blashill, Mike Pekka, Mike Vellucci. How do you feel specifically about Anders? How do you feel specifically about the Blashill hire? And then we can get into the assistants in a second.
Yeah, so I think when you went into the coaching search, you figured that David Carl was at the top of their list, right?
Yeah.
And initially when things fell through where he decided to stay at Denver, you thought, oh man, that's a swing and miss by the Blackhawks. But then you kind of take a step back, and as they went through their process, I think Jeff Blashill is a guy that jumped out to me kind of from the beginning, just because I thought he had he's been a head coach at basically every single level with college and juniors and the minors, international, even the NHL. I figured, and then you look at his age, he's 51 years old. Mike Babcock is a guy that was his mentor growing up. And then obviously John Cooper over the last 3 years, close friend. So I thought, okay, this guy has a really good background, coaching resume, leader. And it feels like coaches on their second go around, especially after they've taken a couple years to kind of reflect, feels like it goes far better for them. And I think with Blashill, it's going to be a far better situation than he was in Detroit, which even that impressed me. The fact that he lasted 7 years during that brutal rebuild for Detroit that they're still not out of, when you consider the average lifespan of an NHL head coach today is 2.3 years. So I really like the hire, but I can see why fans initially think, oh, okay, swung and missed at David Carl, then they have to go down to like their second option. But I actually think Blashill is probably the less risky of the two between Carl and Blashill, because Blashill would be a first-time NHL head coach.
Yeah.
He'd be bringing in his own assistants. Like you really, and if that went sideways, be a tough sell for the fan base. But with Blashill now, he's bringing in these veteran coaches that he has worked with. Anders, he has a long-time relationship with him. Vellucci, very well respected. Michael Pekka, obviously a two-time Selke winner. So that guy is to mold some of the young forwards that the Blackhawks have. I think that is encouraging. So I actually really like this hire. I know it's not a sexy name, but I think I would be surprised if this didn't end up being a really strong hire as far as him leading the Blackhawks through the next several stages of the rebuild.
Oh yeah, so you bring up like how the current average coaching lifespan right now is 2.3 years, which is it's crazy. And I feel like this is a thing in all pro sports right now. The coaching landscape, like there's no leash for these coaches, but like with that being said, do you think Blashill's a guy that you see here long term, or is this more of like a next couple years,
get through the rebuild,
bring a solid guy in that's going to teach important aspects of these games to these young players, and then maybe look elsewhere in a couple years? Or do you think the vibe you get right now is like, no, this is the guy until it isn't?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't want to dance around it by having a cliche answer, but this is what I'll say. I think if the Hawks are trying to think 5 years from now, they're probably going to get themselves in trouble, because what the Hawks could have done is, hey, let's go out and get a guy like Gerard Gallant or John Tortorella, or, I know Mike Sullivan was out there, but clearly that didn't line up with his timeline, right? He wanted to go with the Rangers. I think if the Hawks are trying to identify a guy that will be there 5 years from now, you're looking too far ahead. I think they really needed to focus. I think these next 2 years specifically are absolutely crucial. And if Jeff Blashill leads the Blackhawks on a very nice trajectory over the next couple years, and they get to year 3 where they're finally pushing for playoffs and they're competing for, hopefully playoff spots, but eventually going to be Stanley Cup contenders down the road, I think that's the next step of the rebuild. What you don't want to happen is you hire a coach, Blashill, and we go into next season and it's like, oh, some of these guys are regressing, the wins aren't coming, and now it's like we thought too far down the road that we forgot to focus on the next couple of years. And so I think if Blashill can lead the Blackhawks in the next 2 to 3 years, through the next several stages of the rebuild where you feel like there is a really strong progression, you ride that wave as long as you can. And then if you need to make a change to bring in, the Joel Quenneville to the Dennis Savard, you can do that. Or you can do it like what Colorado and Tampa did, where they hired John Cooper and Jared Bednar, and you ride that wave. And he's like, oh, he was actually our Stanley Cup winning coach too, where maybe they weren't expecting that at the time. So I think it's too premature to look that far ahead. And I think if Blashill can focus on the next 2 to 3 years, leading the Blackhawks through the next several stages of the rebuild, where individuals are improving, guys are taking the next step, and then you're seeing the wins and losses come, I think that would be an encouraging next several steps for Chicago.
Yeah, you kind of already answered the question there, but I guess, yeah, in the short term, then, what is a realistic expectation for the Blackhawks and Jeff Blashill's first season next year in terms of, wins, losses, and development? What do you want to see out of this squad next year? It might be a hard question to ask now because we don't know exactly what the roster is going to look like, but assuming it kind of looks like it did with the youth movement at the end of the year, like March, April, kind of similar to that. Yeah.
Yeah. The answer I've been giving people that ask me about what do you think about the Hawks next year is, I think next season will be what I thought this past season was.
Yes.
Well
said. I'm going to steal that from you.
Yeah. So I thought this past season would be where they take the next step, where they're, again, not saying they're knocking on the door for playoffs, but think, they would be in the 22 to 24 range as far as the NHL standings. Yeah. So I think that's where I think the Hawks will go. And anytime you hire a new head coach, they even saw it with Luke Richardson. You always get that first year bump, right? It's like everyone's they're bought into the message because it's all new, it's fresh. And I remember that first year of Luke Richardson was the worst of the rosters, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And they played very hard for him. Every single game, it feels like the Hawks were really hardworking. I think they'll get that from Blashill. And so I think naturally you're going to see the new coach bump. I think without knowing the roster moves that the Blackhawks are going to make, it still feels like the Hawks are going to be taking that next step, at least from the basement tier to the next, at least the next tier.
Okay. Yeah.
The year after that is going to be interesting because it's is that the year the Hawks start to be aggressive, not just, let's go out and get some fringe players. Is that the year they want to be in on Kirill Kaprizov or in on some of these huge free agents, and the Hawks could try to speed it up just a fraction, not irresponsibly, but be like, hey, we really want to take this next step. And so, but to answer your question, with this coming season, I would say 22 to 24 range. I think the Hawks would like to be as far as the NHL standings, not knocking on the door of a play. Maybe that might be 23 to 25-ish. I think would be a better estimate for me.
Okay. So in terms of offseason plans, free agency, the way you answer that question makes me think you think the Hawks are maybe not going to be super aggressive in free agency this year. Maybe that's a next year thing or down the road. Because I've heard conflicting reports. Some people are saying the Hawks will be in, and big dogs like Mitch, some are saying no. What are the kind of vibes you're getting right now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the Hawks are definitely going to have a hand in a lot of the big names. I think they would have definitely been in on Mikko Rantanen if he hit the open market. The Mitch Marner one is interesting because I don't know if Chicago was going into this past season expecting that Marner was going to be available because he was either likely going to re-sign with Toronto, or now we're hearing it's more and more likely that he's not going to be with the Maple Leafs. And so I just don't know if you're a guy like Mitch Marner, if Chicago would make the most sense. They could obviously give you the most money, but if you're looking for a quiet market and to try to find a team that would also be able to win now, if you look at Vegas or Anaheim or whatever, teams that are kind of further ahead of Chicago and are also warmer climates, quieter markets, if he's looking to get away from the chaos from Toronto, I think those would be better fits. So I don't think, if Chicago doesn't land Mitch Marner, it won't be for lack of trying. It'll just be because the timelines just don't match up.
Okay.
Where do you stand, though, as far as that goes? Because, we've had these discussions and, honestly, arguments all year long about free agency, and I've completely changed my tune as the season has gone on, and especially as we saw that youth movement to end the year and the way those kids played down the final, 10 games of the season. Where do you stand personally as far as what you want them to do in free agency, whether it be bringing in guys now or bringing in guys a year or two down the line? Because That's kind of where I'm at now, where it's like, I was saying at the beginning of the year, like, got to get Rantanen or Marner. Got to get Rantanen or Marner. But then as I saw these kids start to come into the lineup, I'm like, maybe we shouldn't be throwing away roster spots just yet and, like, find out what we truly have and then make that decision a year or two down the line.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think that's why Kyle Davidson has always said he wants to be careful on how he allocates the money, because you don't want to go get your big fish that might, you're going to sign someone to a 7-year deal and they're just starting 30 years old. And you're like, oh, wait, we had a guy in Sasha Boisvert or Frank Nazar or whatever that could have easily slotted into that role. And now how do we make the puzzle pieces work? And so I think it's a fine balance between wanting to be patient to allow these kids to develop, to see, okay, do we have a second line center here? Or is it more of a winger that's a top 6 guy, but we can, go out and get a second line center down the road, versus also wanting to be aggressive in some way and not just sit on your hands and waiting for these guys to develop. And then you're like, oh, some of these guys actually didn't develop the way that we had hoped. And now we wish we would have plugged in that hole earlier because we don't. So it's this careful balance. And that's why I think it might make more sense for Chicago to go into this free agency trying to maybe land a guy like Nick Ehlers, where he's going to be a consistent top 6 player, perennial 60-point producer that's not going to break the bank, where he's not going to get $10+ million. Like, I think I saw the Frank Seravalli, the Daily Face-Off, had his projection at 6 years and $8 million cap hit. Like, that's more of a guy where you're like, okay, that's manageable, where it's not gonna completely ruin the financial picture, but it's a guy that is going to play a top 6 role on your team for many years to come at a respectable price. So maybe that's where Chicago looks to, instead of getting the big fish where you're like, oh shoot, we just allocated $12+ million to, hypothetically, Mitch Marner. And now it's like, how do we filter in the rest of the roster when guys like Bedard and Sam Rinzel and Levshunov, they're all going to get paid? How do we make all that money work? And so it's going to be an interesting summer, though, for Chicago.
Another big question mark is the draft coming up this month. I'm asked 2 questions. Who do you want the Hawks to pick in 3? Who do you think they're going to take at 3, assuming that those top 2 guys, Misha Schaefer, are off the board?
Yeah. Man, this is the one question that I've been getting constantly. Like, I
apologize.
No. I'm saying, I'm not, don't apologize. I'm saying it because fans are so interested on, number 3. It feels like the draft starts with Chicago at 3, right?
Just
it's like
2019.
Schaefer. Yeah, exactly. Just like 2019. Very interesting draft, by the way. So here's what I'll say. I think because there are so many names in the mix, here's how I'll narrow it down. Porter Martone, James Higgins, they're going to get the most attention because Martone brings a different style. Big physical. He's just a subpar skater. So I'm not sure Chicago's crazy about that. And then you get James Higgins, who went into the year as kind of the consensus front runner to be the number 1 overall pick. And he's really slid, right? So those are the 2 sexy names. I'm shifting my attention to Anton Frundell or Caleb Denoyer. Like, those are the 2 I would hone in on if I was a Chicago Blackhawks fan looking for Chicago to pick at number 3 overall. You don't look crazy about that. Is that okay?
Lee's not feeling it.
No?
I've been screaming at my chat about this for 2 months. Literally, Charlie, we have a bit on the show where the chat's always asking for prospect talk. And we call prospect talk like they're slop and they're piggies, and they oink at us to talk about this. And yes, I have had so many experts come into shows and streams over the past 2 months to tell me how Caleb Denoyer is going to be the next Patrice Bergeron. So I'm a little hesitant, but I do understand why you want a reliable 2-way centerman. But continue.
Yep. No, totally fair. Here's how I've just in talking to people. Here's how it's been presented to me with Frundell and Denoyer, both 2-way centers, 200-foot, responsible in their own end, right? Mm-hmm. We had Corey Pronman on our podcast a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned that when Frundell is at the top of his game, scouts tell him they think they see Anze Kopitar. Like, that's his comparable. And there was a clip that went around a few days ago that he was like, he had like a backhand shot that was like through the wheel in the top corner. Like, it was unbelievable. But anyway, that's Frundell's ceiling, or that's his ceiling, right? With Denoyer, I saw Bob McKenzie had interviewed. It was a a head scout for a team during his midseason rankings, and they're like, Denoye is a Philip Deneau type player with offensive upside. So I'm like, all right, well, that works. Like if you're Chicago, where you see Connor Bedard as your first line center, if you're looking at a second line center, Denoye could potentially be the guy. I think Frondel has the higher ceiling. I think Denoye has the higher floor. So I think that's how I would kind of separate the two of them. But those are the two. Yes, please, you have your hand up.
Should the Blackhawks be drafting a Phil Deneau at 3rd overall?
Well, it's a good question. I think the alternative would be you have to be so sold on James Higgins or Porter Martone that if you're going to draft a winger in Porter Martone, like I've seen the Tkachuk comparisons with Porter Martone.
Yeah.
I've had several people text me, throw cold water on those comparisons because that it's just
he's not the same kind
he's
of
not
dog.
in that league.
He's not the same kind of dog.
That's exactly what I was told. He doesn't have that same dog in him that the Tkachuks have. Like there was So I would say that. So I think when you see the Tkachuk comparisons, you're like, oh, what the Hawks? It would be a no-brainer for them to get a Tkachuk player, right? Because you see how
Power
he's
forward.
changed.
Yeah.
Like Matthew Tkachuk has changed the identity of the way the Florida Panthers play. The problem is, there are people that don't believe he's not that.
Could be
so
Kirby
that's
Dach.
why I would temper. And to go along with it, he's not a terrific skater either.
Okay.
Not that Matthew Tkachuk is either. He's just a different kind of player, but they're just not in the same realm, I don't think.
Okay. I completely get the mindset there. Like it all makes sense. For me, it's just about picking one of those two guys. At 3 doesn't make sense because it's like the way I look at that is trade down or trade up. We know Kyle Davidson is like very capable of at least trying to be aggressive. We saw it last year trying to get 2 top 5 picks to get Levchinov and Demidov. I feel like if you're thinking about Frendel or Denoye, however you pronounce his name, trade down or trade up for Misa, no?
Yeah, the problem I have with this is I don't think this draft class is like crazy good, even at the top.
Yeah.
You know,
like
with Schaefer and Misa. Also, like there are some people that don't believe that the drop off between Misa and Frondel Denoye is as significant. So it's not like, it's not like you would be getting the slam dunk, if you go up and get Misa versus whatever. So it's a fascinating conversation though, because it's at number 3, there isn't like 1 or 2 options. There's like 4 options, and so it's going to be interesting to see which direction the Blackhawks going. I think with Frondel and Denoye, and that's why I would shift my attention to those two, is I just know that to have center depth, true centers, it's easier to have guys that are true centers versus, you have to be really confident in Porter Martone as a winger to draft a winger that high, right? Or James Higgins. I know he's got all the potential in the world, but if he has a really low floor and then you come out of this draft class and you're like, boy, we don't have, go look at some of the previous drafts where you're like, oh, this guy got taken 3rd or 4th overall, and then the 5th overall, 6th overall, 7th overall, they were like, they ended up being terrific NHL players, and the guys that were drafted 3rd or 4th were total swing and misses where like they barely played NHL, right? So I think if you're Chicago and you see Frondel and Denoye have high ceilings but high floors, it's less risky. Not that I would manage my team in picking scared, like, because you don't want to be like, oh, we don't want to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But I think I think Chicago too, like I'll ask you guys this too. I'm not crazy about their center depth in the organizational pipeline. So that's why I think it would be, it would be a pretty good pick for Chicago to prioritize getting a two-way center.
So I guess my question would be, so you think a guy like Frank Nazar would be better suited, like if we were to take a Frondel Denoye and he'd be the 2C, you think Frank Nazar would be better suited on the wing then? Because I look at a guy like Frank Nazar in his 2-way game, I feel like he could kind of be the 2C,
And so that's kind of like the discussion that has to be had is I keep seeing all these people say, oh, the Blackhawks don't have, like, they need centers in the pipeline. So then we got to have a conversation. Connor Bedard's supposed to be playing center. Frank Nazar's supposed to be playing center. We've got Sasha Boisvert, who's obviously going to be a pretty good center. I mean, talk about a two-way guy. You got Oliver Moore that can play center. You got AJ Spellacy that can play center. I mean, we're talking about 5 or 6 guys here that can all play center. Who's not going to be the center here? And let's make that move sooner rather than later. Like, I understand, I kind of always picture Bedard being a winger, to be honest with you. Like that is probably how I see him, but that's not the way that they've been trying to develop him. Like, they've been developing him in a way that makes me think, no, they want this kid to be the 1C. Frank Nazar is as good of a 2C as there's going to be in the league. I really think he has all the makings of he can do everything. Like, he's great defensively. He can drive his own line. He's fast as hell. He can carry the puck. He's got great
PK,
vision. He can pass
play, everything. Yeah.
Everything. Like, Frank. And if you don't think Frank Nazar, Frank Nazar's a center, and I think he could.
But he can be the wing. He played wing in the World.
He could. But that's your 2C. And then it's like Sasha Boisvert. Like, this kid looks like an absolute stud. We're gonna see what he does at BU this year. But like, that could also be a top 6 center. And then you've also got Bedard. And so I just I guess that's how I look at it. I would love to hear your thoughts on that, and like where you think maybe Bedard plays, or where you see Nazar end up ultimately ending up at.
No, that's definitely fair. I think where I'm coming from is I don't see a lot of size down the middle for Chicago.
Yeah.
And when you look at some of these teams in the playoffs, you're going up against Barkov, against McDavid, against Draisaitl. And if you have a first line center that's 5'10", second line center that's 5'9", you really have to have wingers that are not driving play, but are playing differently to complement those undersized centers. But it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I see, how do I want to say this? I wouldn't be opposed if Connor Bedard moved to the wing long term, but it feels like the organization is really committed to having him at the center position. And Connor Bedard is really like publicly, he's like, I want to play center, right? So you're going to follow what Connor wants to do, right? So Connor, let's just say pencil into the first line center. Frank Nazar to me feels like the comparable I have for him, not stylistically, but just what his impact could be with the Blackhawks, is Patrick Sharp. Sharp was a guy that he spent like, how many seasons did he spend? There was at least one full season where he was like the second line center. Then they pushed him to the wing, and then when there's an injury in the lineup, he'll move back to center. I think that's where Frank Nazar is like a Swiss Army knife that way, where he can be a guy that you can slot into the second line center position, but ideally you push him to the wing and make him be that threat from the outside, and maybe you get a bigger type center to play with Nazar. And like, I know his faceoff numbers definitely improved, but you saw it at the Worlds too. Like, even he was USA's leading scorer and he was pushed to the wing. So I think there's just flexibility there with a guy like Frank Nazar. If you do, again, you mentioned like AJ Spellacy, some of the Ryan Green, some of these other guys. I think I don't know if the Hawks are trying to draft all these centers with the goal in mind as like they're all going to be centers. I think that like we like drafting centers that could also play both positions. Okay. Right. Okay. And so you can push guys over to, the wing, and then if they need to step into the center position, you're like, oh, seamless. You can put them in there and they're not going to bat an eye. So but it's a good question, because I do think I see where you're coming from, because you're the inverse, where you're committed at Frank Nazar being center, Bedard wing, and I'm the invert, where I think Bedard is one line C, Nazar could be a wing. But I think we could probably both agree that if they're both centers, that might be a challenge long term, because that's a lot of undersized in the top 6.
I do like the idea of them playing Bedsy and Nazar consistently, like the Sharks have done with Celebrini and Smith, like kind of develop that chemistry. I think that'd be the move, at least for next year. Try that out. Yeah.
Yeah. It gives you options to play them together if that is the case too. Yeah.
Charlie, we've talked about the draft. We've talked about free agency. The other way to acquire players is via trade. I'm looking at another fellow Greek, Nick Kyprios's trade board right now, and there is actually a hawk on there, Connor Murphy. Maybe if you have a minute on him, but there are a lot of young players, a lot of young centers, that have names out there: Marco Rossi, Elias Pettersson, Martin Necas. There's other names like Bowen Byram and Dawson Mercer, young players that maybe fit the timeline of what this current Hawks core could be. Peterka is another one. I would love to get Peterka in here. So I guess my question is, and this is sort of twofold. We're doing all the prospect talk. Not all of these guys are going to play. I don't think everybody sort of gets that. Everybody sort of falls in love with their prospects, and they love these guys, and you don't really realize that only maybe a third of them are going to play games in the National Hockey League. So, it's up to the Blackhawks management staff to identify who they believe is going to be a full-time NHL player and ship the rest out the door while they still maintain value. Is there pressure on management? Like, let's say the Hawks go into next season essentially the same roster and they finish at or near the bottom of the league, and there isn't that movement to that 25th spot or whatever. Are people going to be, are people's seats going to be warm? Like, all I'm asking is, like, instead of putting all of our hopes into a kid that's currently 17 years old, maybe go get a kid that's 23 or 24 or 25 that may be further along in helping the Hawks win. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the wins and how do I want to phrase this? I think I always say, like, when you're in a rebuild, the important part of a rebuild is that the young players are developing, and eventually the wins are going to come if they all start to hit their ceiling. But if the Hawks start drafting guys and then they get to the NHL and then you see, oh, they're not panning out, I think that's when the alarm bells get sounded on the management. And right now, I haven't seen that with a lot of the players that are entering the NHL under Kyle David's tutelage. Like with obviously Connor Bedard is one area, but like Frank Nazar has been unbelievable for Chicago. And how about Sam Renzel? Like if you went back into the 2022 first round, I remember I was there in Montreal when they got taken. Like everyone around me was like, well, this guy we did not have on our first round board.
Yeah, everybody's confused.
Yeah. But Chicago at the time was like, he's very raw. They were very upfront about it. They're like, very raw. He's going to need time to develop. But now that he enters the league, 3 years later, and you see the potential, you're like, how many teams that passed on him would really like that on their roster right now?
He looks like what we thought Kevin would be or could be. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the one player. Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned him. That's the one player that it's hard for me to judge because last year was very weird for him as far as couldn't play in the minors, but also was too good for the juniors, right? And it was like, ugh, he might be biting off. Yeah, he might be biting off more than they can chew being in the NHL. But then you don't want him to go back to juniors. And he won in juniors. So it wasn't like he was going back where there's like this unfinished business that, a lot of players that go to college where they come up short in the Frozen Four, they're like, I want to go back and win a title for my school, right? With him, he had just won the title with Seattle. So it was like, well, there's no incentive for him to want to go back. And then you throw in the fact that obviously the sudden passing of his father, it was like, there were times where I was like in the locker room and you could just see like he's kind of just like in a daze, and I felt really bad for him. And so I'm sure it was really tough mentally for him. And so then you couple that with the fact that he's trying to navigate his NHL life, like physically, there were games where obviously he got bodied. Having said all that, like there's still potential in him, but when you see guys like Lev Shinov and Renzel and Vlasic, it's like you see him quietly sliding on the depth chart, and you're like, but it's not his own doing. It's like other guys are starting to jump him, and he has to kind of keep pace. So I think this coming season is very crucial for a guy like Kevin Korchinski. But all that to say, like Davidson has really made some strong picks, and Mike Donaghy as well. Obviously, he's the guy that kind of heads the draft for Chicago. So if they were swinging and missing on some of these picks, I'd say, all right, I think the Hawks have to kind of reassess things, but I haven't seen that. It's just the on ice product in the NHL hasn't been where the Blackhawks want them, but it's not a fault of Chicago is swinging and missing with their roster decisions. It's just, hey, these guys are all still young. We just got to find a way to bridge the gap a little bit quicker.
My question was more so along the lines of like, we don't know when. We will all know at the same time when the decision is made that they can't play in the NHL by the general public. But NHL teams, the Chicago Blackhawks, they have this information, they have this data more readily available to them. So they know where these kids are at more so than we are, even by watching them and scouting them and all that. I was just wondering, you can't have a gluttony of prospects. Eventually, you are going to have to like make some 3-for-1 deals, 4-for-2 deal, whatever it is. You're removing players from your player pool to get some quality, vets, I guess. But, a 24-year-old is a vet when your team's mostly 20-year-olds. So,
right.
I don't know. It could be interesting. I did have another question I wanted to ask. You kind of like glossed over it a little bit, and it is the Connor Bedard contract. I think it's something that, maybe people aren't talking about as much because I think the expectation is that he's not going to sign something on July 1st. But is there a non-zero possibility that there is an extension done before next season kicks off?
I haven't thought too deeply about when the contract would get done. I'm just like very, very confident that it will get done at some point, and I think I loved Connor Bedard addressing the speculation in his exit interviews. Like I remember I was standing right next to him, and as he was saying that answer, I was just smiling in the back. I was like, I cannot wait to put this out on social media because it's going to shut a lot of fans up that are crying.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. And I know Connor a little bit behind the scenes too. And this kid loves it in Chicago. Yeah. Like he just wants to win. Right. And so when you're not winning, you're frustrated. And poor Connor with Regina, like they didn't do a lot of winning either, so he's just like, what the heck? Like, am I doing something wrong? It's kind of like easy to get inside your own head. But, you look at a lot of the great players and, Nathan McKinnon took him forever to actually like emerge as a superstar in the NHL and him to win. And even the Tampa Bay Lightning guys, it took them, some time to win their first Stanley Cup. So no concern there. But as far as his contract, like I definitely think it's going to be this is the one thing that's fascinating to me, honestly, through this entire rebuild is what is his next contract going to look like? Because I think it's going to set the tone for the next several years. Like is he going to take like a Sidney Crosby type discount where it's like,
9.8.
Yeah. Or is he going to go the Austin Matthews route where he's like, I want a 4-year deal, max out as much money as I can. And then at the end of the second contract, max out again, because I think, and not to like try to take money away from players' pockets, but I think it is a crucial element of if your best player, whatever your best player is making, that is the threshold. So you saw with the Toronto Maple Leafs when Austin Matthews got that $11.5 million. Well, Mitch Marner now, his negotiating power was like, well,
what about
Matthews.
me?
Yeah, he's like, Matthews is getting 11.5. You just gave Tavares $11 million. I am just as important as those players. So I also deserve money in that range. Versus you look at Tampa Bay Lightning or whatever, the Florida Panther. Now let's Tampa Bay Lightning. Steven Stamkos had signed the contract. I think it was $8.5 million or $9 million AAV. Any free agent that came to Tampa Bay would be like, Stamkos is our best player. You're not getting more than him. And so any player that came to Tampa Bay, the number was naturally going to be below that. Of course, Andrei Vasilevsky and Nikita Kucherov in their next contracts years later ended up getting up to 9 or 9.5 million. So it ended up breaking that. But any free agent that you try to allure, it's like, well, this player's our best player. You're falling below that. And so if Connor Bedard comes to Chicago and says, I want to take a discount, whatever, says I want an 8-year extension, 9.8, we'll do the Sidney Crosby number thing with 8.7, which it's not going to be 9.8, but whatever. Let's just say he does that. Any Chicago free agent that comes to 9.8 might be a little bit low, but like, because if you're trying to allure like a big fish, you're not going to be like, well, Connor's making 9.8, get in line, because
the
salary cap
the cap is at $250 million right now.
It's going up exponentially over the next 3 years. Yeah. So maybe this is a poor example, but what I'm saying is whatever that ceiling number is going to be for Connor Bedard is going to set the tone for the rest of the entire team. Okay. Because then guys like Frank Nazar and all these other players are going to be looking at the Bedard number and be like, okay, where do I fall in line as far as the importance of where Bedard number is and where I fall versus relative to the importance of the team. And so it's going to be fascinating to see what his next contract looks like. And I'm hoping to dive deeper into this I'm kind of occupied with like draft coverage before I even get to like Bedard's contract, but it's going to creep up on us because July 1st is like 4 weeks away. And free agency is going to hit and we're gonna be like, oh shoot, Bedard is eligible for extension. Like we need to be thinking about what this contract might look like. So very curious to see how that is going to play itself out.
I think the smart move is to wait a year, and for Bedsy, I think, big year next year. Last year, you'll see take all the talk this past season personally. That's what I want to see.
Or sign it this summer and
that works too.
And sign at a lower number, and that would be really nice. We really appreciate you. We don't want to keep you too long. Maybe just a couple more quick fires. First one for me, before Taser, because I do want to ask him about that. But before that, if you had the choice to go back right now and you could either have Connor Bedard or Macklin Celebrini, who would you take for the Chicago Blackhawks and why?
I would take Bedard.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I still think it's Bedard.
That. Yes.
I think in a perfect world, I had heard the Hawks made a pretty significant pitch to San Jose to get Macklin Celebrini.
No way.
So they really tried to get into number one. I know all the attention in that draft did go to the Hawks trying to trade with Columbus to get the additional second, but they also made a pitch to San Jose for number one overall.
I've never heard that. That's crazy. I've never
San Jose was they were pretty adamant that they were taking Celebrini. Now I bet you a lot of teams ended up making a strong pitch for San Jose at number one, so I don't think that this should be breaking news as far as the Hawks attempting, but they definitely tried to get their 1 and 2 line centers. But
let's get me.
I still think with Connor. So with Connor Bedard, he's the guy. He's the Patrick Kane, right? And it feels like Celebrini is the Jonathan Toews. So it's like with Bedard, you are hoping that you're getting on a 100-point guy, player that can score 50+ goals in the NHL, right?
Art Ross trophies.
Hard trophies.
Exactly. And I think that's why, when we're mentioning who Chicago could take at the number 3 overall pick with Frondel and Denoye, and they got Sasha Boisvert in the system. We'll see what Ryan Green turns out to be, whether he's more of a second-line center or a third-line center. But I think I shouldn't say easier to find the Jonathan Toews. It's actually harder to find the center. But I think when you have that winger or player that could be the 100+ point player, like you see, it elevates the ceiling of everyone else. And you're like, all right, we don't need to worry about scoring, but if it was like a Jonathan Toews situation where you're like, okay, where are we going to get our offense from?
Yep.
Right. So I think that's really, so it's a good question though. Like, I think they're definitely different players. And I will admit, it feels like Celebrini's offensive ceiling is higher than Jonathan Toews's. We'll see how that kind of plays out. It feels like Celebrini can actually be like more than a point per game player in the NHL while also being a dependable two-way center. But I still like my chances with Connor Bedard.
Ceiling is much higher.
Love that.
Taser.
Jonathan Toews obviously just informing his agent that he's serious about this. He wants to come back. Maybe your thoughts on that, and also where you would like to see him end up. I know there's been some possible things that have been thrown out there,
Kane.
whether it's Detroit with Kane or Anaheim with Q or Winnipeg or Colorado, although Colorado just extended Nelson, so I don't know if they're gonna have the funds for much more. But thoughts on Taser coming back and where you'd like to see him end up.
Yeah. So when he originally came out with that GQ article and kind of dropped in there that he was thinking about returning or whatever, I was kind of like, okay, cool. Like it kind of just felt like a thought to me, like, whatever. And then as we get closer, I think he did an interview with The Athletic and was also like, yep, I'm still, committed to returning. But he had mentioned how he wasn't know how realistic it was until he actually got on the ice with NHL players. And so I know he kind of makes his home now in Arizona. And so maybe he's been skating with some NHL players. I know Austin Matthews is there. I don't know if Matthews is on the ice though already from that exit with Toronto, but it's probably his night. So I think, so I'm not sure if he it sounds like he's back to his playing weight, feeling good mentally, physically. I think the interesting thing with him, I know it was a couple years off since he last played, but I'm wondering how beneficial that was for his body versus if you're playing a couple years and you're 37 years old. That's a lot of mileage that you have accrued, like 82 games, back-to-back season. Like, I know age-wise he's 37, but maybe his body feels closer to like 34 or 35 because he didn't accrue, 2+ years of the NHL NHL games over the last And Toews plays a pretty demanding brand of hockey. Like he's not Kane dancing around people. He's
in
going in
crazy
the
shape.
corners.
You seen that guy in India? Yeah.
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 So here's what I'll say. So two things that Toews has going for him is one, the mileage. Like he doesn't have the mileage over the last couple of years, so his body probably feels fresh. But the second thing is he's down to his playing weight. And the last time that he was in Chicago, the last year of him in Chicago, he was the heaviest he had ever been. Like it was difficult for him to skate. It was hard for him to work out in the gym not because he was lazy, but because his body was just like breaking down on him. And so I think like there were definitely times where I'm like, he just can't skate anymore. But if he's down to his normal playing weight, like what it was during the 2015, all those runs, lighter on his skates, like still probably going to lead the league in face-offs, like face-off percentage. Yep. Like he brings qualities that are still dependable for a third or fourth line center. Yeah. And I think it's such a low risk, medium to high reward if you're a team that goes down this route, because worst case scenario, you're going to sign him for like a veteran minimum, but because he's 35 and older, obviously he gets performance bonuses. So you can just have like checkpoints. Like if he hits like 50 games, $1 million. If he hits like X points, $1 million. And then that money will filter over into the next season. It's such a win-win for both the player and the team. The one thing you mentioned, Anaheim, obviously that would probably be an ideal fit for him. The Joel Quenneville reunion, but also Anaheim wants to take that next step.
Nice weather.
It would be a quiet market, nice weather, which I'm sure would be good for his body. Like if he's really trying to prepare himself for the rigors of an 82 game season. The one other team that I don't know if I've seen mentioned like realistically, but it always feels like they're looking for a bargain and they're looking to be in on these things is Vegas.
Oh God.
Like if you're Vegas, where if you can subtract, I don't know, like they're going to need to move some money around to make it work. Like I don't know what their financial situation is. It always feels like they're barely have enough room. So they might need to move some things around. But I know with Toews kind of parking himself in Arizona area, it's close to Vegas. They're going to be competitive. It's not a loud market either, but like they're going to be competitive. They're going to win. So like that's another team that I think would be a pretty good fit if Toews wants to go somewhere and actually like have a chance to win, not just, hey, I want to return and just have fun.
Yeah. Okay. Speaking of Blackhawk Legends, I know you still follow Patrick Kane like a lot of Hawks fans. Do you expect him to re-up in Detroit? Seems like it. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I would be surprised if that didn't get done. I know Kane has been pretty like vocal about like wanting someone's gonna have to drag him off the ice to retire, because like it feels like he's just a total rink rat. That marriage in Detroit has worked out really well for him, and I think because Detroit is really kind of like spinning its wheels, I don't know how they could let him go and try to sell that to the fan base, like, oh, we're losing a 60-point player, guy that runs our power play, and you try to take the next step. Like you better fill that with someone else, like Mitch Marner, and then you can sell that. But with Kane, it feels like it's been such a good marriage between the two of them that I would expect him to re-up.
Okay, who do you got for the cup?
I have Edmonton in 6 games, but this is going to be as entertaining a Stanley Cup final in recent memory, because honestly, it feels like both teams are better than last year.
Yeah.
Like Florida, which is hard to say with Florida winning the cup last year, but like they're well positioned to have another strong Stanley Cup final. And then Edmonton, gosh, what was in the game 5 against Dallas? Like Dallas was throwing the kitchen sink at Edmonton, or like needed to throw the kitchen sink at Edmonton in the final like third period. And what was it? Like Edmonton gave up like 2 shot attempts in like a 20-minute span. Like they are so stout defensively that they don't get enough credit for it. McDavid, Draisaitl, they get all the attention for their offense, but boy, they can lock it down as good as any team out there. But Florida has this way about them that they make other teams like assimilate to them. So Edmonton's challenge is going to be, we can't feed into the Florida's antics. We got to make sure that they play. Yeah, they got to play their own game. And I just think the Zach Hyman injury sucks, but I thought the Matthias Ekholm one earlier in the playoffs was far worse, and like they somehow powered through that like without batting an eye. And so I think with the Zach Hyman injury, Edmonton's like, yep, we'll just plug in Corey Perry in that, power play bumper spot or net front spot, and we'll be totally good. Like they just seem invincible this year. And so I think that is going to carry into the final. And so I got McDavid hosting the Stanley Cup finally for the first time.
NHL love that. Yes, sir.
I would love to see that too.
Charlie, just a personal question. How was your first season on WGN after the, NBC Sports Chicago thing? And, how's the pod going this year? Just how was it?
It was awesome. Honestly, like it's so different from television radio, because I went from TV doing, like, hey, 2 to 3 minute TV hits, right? And your answers are short and can't really like elaborate on. And then I go to radio, and it's like, there are times this year where I'm like, hey, I got 30 minutes straight of just talking. And it's like, wow, like, what am I going to talk about? And it was actually fun because like I found things to talk about, and then you're checking around what's going around the NHL, and I was able to elaborate far more on my thoughts versus like television is just very like, hey, just get your concise short thoughts out there. And there were times where I wanted to elaborate, and Pat Boyle, I love this guy. He's really helped me, but Pat will, like, I'll see Pat in the background going like, oh, I'm being too long-winded. I was like, I got to wrap up this thought because we got to go to another highlight package. So it's definitely different than television, but I really enjoyed working with John and Troy, but specifically Troy. I feel like we had so much fun on the post-game shows this season that it was fun entertainment, hopefully for the fans, but for us too. Like the show would end and I'd be like, man, that was a fun show. Even though the Hawks lost 5-1, but we made that a fun show.
Relatable.
So it was good. It was good.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Charlie, thank you so much for doing this and taking the time. We really appreciate it.
Actually, I got one more question for you. We asked Ben
Yeah.
Pope this question. We had him on. It's a bit of a silly question, but
You had Ben on before me? I get it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
We
This is
asked
the
you
question.
first,
Well,
and
this is
he
what-
responded.
That's right. We
first,
couldn't make it work.
This is
Oh,
what the, this
good.
is
I
what
love
the
that.
question ties into. We always joke about it. Sometimes we see like you and Ben Pope's tweets, and sometimes like you'll have different lines than he does. Like, is there a bit of a friendly competition in the Hawks insider sphere? Yeah.
That's so funny that you say that because Ben and I guess it's funny because there are so many fans that like will see me at a Blackhawks practice or whatever, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you're the lines guy." Like I get your lines on Twitter, and I was like, "Oh, I'm the lines guy now." Like that's interesting. But there was we've always had it's been fun trying to determine the lines together, and so Ben and I now have this thing where if we're confused about the lines, we'll like congregate. We're like, all right, how'd you see it? Was he on the right side or the left side? And then we'll make sure that we get it. But there definitely are times where I definitely see it one way and Ben saw it another way. And I was like, I'm rolling with what I saw. Yeah. You can roll with yours. And it's kind of like, it's like a game of like, who is right? Like who saw it right, And most times it was me, but I'm kidding.
When he came on, he did give you your flowers, and he said that you were way better at the lines than he is. So he admitted that himself.
It's I have a secret. So I kind of know when they're going to start to get into the line drills, and so you can start to see like they're starting to hover. So I already have like my phone out, getting ready to like it's like I see 3 players starting to skate in a circle. It's like okay, I already have. Versus like if you're if the lines are just starting, like to get the phone out and to try to like sort it all out in your head, it can be difficult because you're like, oh shoot, like I just missed that first line. Like what was it? Who was on the left side? Who was on the right side? The challenge, which Ben and I joke about all the time, is the starting goalie's net. So at the United Center, it's to the left side, I guess. When we're sitting, we're behind the Blackhawks bench, and it's to the left side. Mm-hmm. But on the road, it can be sometimes different because the bench will be on a different side. And so where the starting goalie net is where the goaltender is warming up, like if it's on the side of Chicago's bench. And so there was one example, I can't remember where it was. Was it Carolina or something where I think Ben and Laz were on the trip, and they were like, they were like Mrazek's in the starter's crease, and then it ended up not being Mrazek. Like Sorensen said after it was like, oh no, geez, I'm brain farting on who the
Soderblom.
Soder.
Yeah.
Soderblom. he's actually starting in net, and it's like, oh well, we missed that. And like Ben would text me, he'd be like, we got the starting goalie wrong, we missed having you on the road. And it's like
That's hilarious.
we would just like congregate. We're like, what did you see? So it's a fun game we play, but no, now we get to a point where like we see the lines, and like Ben and I will just look at each other if we're sitting, we're like, did you get that?
Get
We're
the
like,
okay.
"All right,
Yeah.
man."
That's great. That's hilarious.
Charlie, you are great. I will tell you the exact same thing we told Barstool Chief last Friday, in that now that you've been on once, you are legally obligated to come on whenever we ask. So
Perfect. I actually told WGN in my contract talks that I have to be on this podcast once a year.
Thank
So
God.
it's
There
in
we go.
my contract
Make sure
now.
it's
It's in my
penciled
contract.
in.
beautiful.
Seriously though,
This was so fun, guys.
Yeah,
Good.
thank you so
I'm-
much.
Thank you very much.
Hopefully you enjoyed it half as much as we did. We appreciate you taking the time, and keep doing the Lord's work. You've been great on WGN. You make our job so much easier. So we really appreciate you a lot.
Enjoy your
Thank
summer,
you for
Charlie.
thank you guys so much for the kind words and for having me. This honestly actually flew by quicker than I thought. I didn't even realize we were going for an hour, so this was fun. Second, I expect one of those hats in my mailbox in the coming weeks,
We'll
because
send one
those
right
are
over. That'll be a complimentary
Love it.
gift.
Figure it out for you.
Yes.
Deal.
I love it. Thank you, boys. Appreciate you.
Have a good one.
Take care.
You too.
Fellas, you got to keep going here. You're
I
still
thought we were
live.
waiting for you.
I mean, you are still live.
He comes on the show to do
Just
it.
because, yeah, I mean, just because he's not here anymore doesn't mean you're not live on the.
You said you were gonna be the intro, guys. I don't know.
didn't say I was going to be the outro
I was
guy.
too stunned to
Alright.
speak,
well,
man.
yeah, we got stunned by Charlie Rou's aura there. Pardon us.
He was unbelievable.
Yeah,
that
W's
was-
in the chat
that
for
was
Charlie,
awesome.
man. That was, I think that I'm going to say safely, that was the best guest interview we've had.
I was checking the time, and I'm like, geez, we've had this guy for a while. But then he was every single answer, he was just going
just
in.
kept
and
going.
I
I'm
was
like, I'm not gonna steal his
I
flow.
was
Like,
dude,
yeah, yeah.
I am not gonna be the man.
No.
that
Talk as long as you want.
Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Charlie Roumeliotis.
Yeah,
That was
the GOAT.
awesome. We've still got Stanley Cup Final talk to do. We've got Mount Rushmore to do. So all that and more is going to be coming on the other side of
Oliver
the
Moore.
break. Oliver Moore. Oh my gosh. Oliver Moore coming on the other side of the break. Just kidding. Keep it here. We'll see you in a sec. Welcome back, Chicago Hockey Radio. We've got a Mount Rushmore. For you. Lee loses.
Well, I think I finished third, so we finished third and fourth. So not a great Mount Rushmore for you or Lee Grosman, Justin Lynch.
Yeah, well, I wasn't super prepared for this one, but it is a really good Mount Rushmore, and we had some good conversations.
Excuses.
Well, I gotta throw them out there.
Just joking.
I'm like Austin Matthews. What am I gonna do? Not tell you about the injury? Okay. Without further ado, this is Chicago Hockey Radio's Mount Rushmore of worst trades in NHL history.
We are back. It is Mount Rushmore time. Tassos, Lee, Justin, and Raven, and no Tim. And it is worst trades in NHL history.
Oh, boy.
The Mount Rushmore of worst trades. And with the 1-1 pick, it is the two-man team. Raven, who you got?
Two-man
what
team
you got?
missing one. See, this is where it sucks because with my teammate, I can bounce off. And I'm kind of lost here, but
The
I'm
1.5 man team.
I'm gonna take Montreal trading Patrick Waugh and how that destroyed them afterwards.
They left him in, from 9-goal game, and that's when they knew it was over. Yeah, I'll never play for you again.
Catering to my audience, I'm going Panarin for side.
I knew he was gonna take that one. I can't even. Yeah, it's the right choice. I'd say the worst trade in modern NHL history. Modern. I think I know what you're gonna do.
Me?
You are next, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're gonna do.
I don't think you do, dude.
No, maybe not.
I literally just started thinking about this 30 seconds ago,
Oh.
so I'm
Oh, wow.
Team Chat GPT.
Wow.
Um,
So you're Tim Tebow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess.
No, I may have helped you.
No, I'll just give it to you. I'm gonna go with Joe Thornton being traded to the San Jose Sharks for Marco Sturm, Brad Stewart, and Wayne Primo.
Wow. Yeah, this is the one I assumed you were going to take, your boy, from the Flames perspective, trading Matthew Tkachuk for Jonathan Huberdeau, and there was more involved in that trade.
Oh, that's not even. Yeah, no, that's not where I was going.
But, okay. Yeah, I think it was. It's funny. Everybody at
That's
the time.
not as bad of a. That's
But
not that bad.
I just remember everybody at the time saying that the Panthers got fleeced in that trade, and yet it was really the reverse. I mean, look what's happened since then. Cats have won a cup, and the Flames haven't done shit.
You have two.
Yeah. I mean, the trade itself actually wasn't that bad. It was more the after effect. But again, we're getting votes here. Give me the Seth Jones to Chicago trade.
That's what I thought you were
Yeah.
hinting at.
Yeah, like honestly, the trade itself really wasn't bad, but the contract was rough. But people will see Seth Jones and click.
True.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with the Philadelphia Flyers trading Patrick Sharp to the Chicago Blackhawks for a 2006 third-round pick.
Yeah.
and Matt Ellison.
Back in the day, the Hawks used to be on the positive side of fleecing trades. Yeah. The good old days.
I'm going to go Edmonton trades Wayne Gretzky to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And that was gonna be mine, but yeah, I'm surprised that dropped that low.
Got hockey in California going. Oilers did still win a cup after that, though, but probably could have won more. Held on to the greatest player of all time. Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. Wonder if history will repeat itself. Yeah.
Let's do Buffalo trading Ryan Smith to St. Louis. Or Ryan O'Reilly, my bad.
Wait, what was that?
Buffalo trades Ryan O'Reilly to St. Louis.
That's what happens when you crash into a Tim Hortons.
What else you got?
Leafs trading Tuukka Rask to Boston.
Oof, that's an oof.
There's some interesting ones here.
Some juicy ones.
I'm going to go Chara to Ottawa.
The initial one. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Islanders traded so many good players like before they didn't really give them a chance. Like the Luongos and the Charas and a few of them.
Get out of here.
Snooping. Gotta see what the enemy's doing. He's surfing Reddit.
Yeah, I am. I'll go with the Hawks trading Dominic Hasek to the Sabres.
It's crazy that they have Belfour and Hasek as a goalie tandem.
Yeah. For Stefan Bjergård. Yeah, but then actually I'm not even going to include this tidbit about the 4th round pick.
Who became that 4th round pick?
Not important.
Oh, okay. I mean, it was Dominic Hasek. They probably got fleeced.
It was Eric Days.
Oh, Eric Daze, a legend. My best friend was named after Eric Daze. They won the trade. What he could have been if not for injuries. So that could be a future one. Yeah. I'm just joking. I'm just playing around. The Hawks fans are actually fans. Okay, I will take this one perplexed me as a kid. Like what he could have done with Connor McDavid. Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. I'm still confused by that trade. Mm-hmm. To this day, it makes no sense. And ever since then, Taylor Hall has been made into a suitcase. So poor guy. Yeah. Oh, I have another one, right? Yeah, another Hawks trade. Phil Esposito traded for Pitt Martin and other stuff. Before he really got good, could have teared it up with Tony and became one of the best goal scorers of all time in Boston. So, yeah, Phil Esposito trade.
My turn again.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go with the Carolina Hurricanes trading Natchez Drury and all that for Mikko Rantanen, who did not end up playing for the team for more than a month.
Yeah, that would do.
Some recency bias.
Yeah. We didn't talk about that trade, all right?
There's so many good ones out there. There's going to be a lot of honorable mentions, but I'm going to go with one of the more famous ones from recent memory, Philip Forsberg for Martin Erat.
Yeah, what he could have done in Washington. Yeah. One of the more underrated players, I feel like, of this era, Philip Forsberg. All right. What's he got for his last pick over there?
I'm going to ask, did anyone take the Chris Draper trade?
No.
Then I'm taking Winnipeg trading Chris Draper to Detroit for $1.
$1.
One of the best hockey stories of all time.
Oh, the dollar.
Well, that's a
gotta
statement.
include it.
One of the best hockey stories of all time.
Yeah, for a guy to get traded for $1 and then to win a bunch of Stanley Cups.
Wins
That's-
4
He was a
cups.
big part of those
Wins
Detroit
4
teams.
cups.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
playing
kind of
over
awesome.
1,100 games.
Yeah, that's kind of awesome. You got
Yeah.
traded for $1.
Good role player. Yeah, they had a lot of those, like the Kirk Maltbys.
No better stories. than
Darren
that one?
Helms.
It's like the Braun GP team.
Those Red
fought
Wings
for
teams were so
power.
perfectly constructed.
Calgary trading Brett Hull to St. Louis is one.
Oh,
Peter Forsberg to Quebec.
Yeah, Peter Forsberg
Flyers.
Flyers trading Peter Forsberg to Quebec for Eric Lindros.
Mm-hmm.
Did somebody say Jerome McGinley ace trade?
Oh.
Ace here.
You had Ron Francis, Ulf Samuelson to Hartford, or to Pittsburgh from Hartford. Ken Dryden was traded from Boston to Montreal. Who else do we have here?
The Sagan trade was kind of rough.
Sagan
right?
trade.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Ottawa trading Zibanejad.
Yeah.
Montreal trading Ryan McDonough for Scott Gomez. Teemu Selanne was traded for Oleg Tverdovsky and Chad Kilger. Flyers traded away. This wasn't like a direct one, but the Flyers traded away Sergei Bobrovsky so they could bring in Ilya Bryzgalov.
Oh, yeah. The universe is so humongous big.
That was 2 separate trades.
The Blackhawks traded Phil Esposito.
That's the one I picked that one. Yeah.
Oh, you did. Say
Yeah.
that one.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some good one out there. Vancouver trading Cam Neely to Boston.
Yeah.
You could argue Detroit or who traded Chelios to Chicago, Montreal.
Montreal, yeah. Well, Dennis Savard was in the twilight of his career, so Hawks definitely won that trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. There's some good ones out there.
Yeah.
New York Rangers trading JT Miller and Ryan McDonough to Tampa for Libor Hayek, Vlad Nemestikov, Brett Howden, and the picks that became Niels Lundqvist and Carl Henriksen. Wow. That's crazy.
And now he's back there.
Yeah, and
crazy.
now he's back there.
How the world turns.
Anson Carter also got traded for Jaromir Jagr too.
Ace here. Oh yeah, whoever got Anson Carter won that trade. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jaromir Jagr, right? Yeah, Ace cleared.
Yeah, that was the one I said.
Ace is one of the all-time best players in the game.
True.
Yeah.
Ace here.
Ace here.
Okay. Well, that was the draft of the worst trades. Let us know if we missed any or if there were any big ones. There's a lot of big ones out here. The Griffin Reinhardt trade is one.
I see what you did there. Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Let us know if we missed any. And cool. Hopefully one of us won. Well, one of us did win, but hopefully it was me.
Welcome back. That Mount Rushmore certainly contains some takes.
Yes, they did.
Some of the takes of all time.
I can't believe we finished 3rd and 4th from this one. What the hell?
I don't know.
I don't get chat sometimes, man.
There's sometimes just no method to the madness.
There really is
the way it goes, and you kind of just got to keep trugging along. It's just like the NHL. It's a long season. There's a lot of these Mount Rushmores, and you can't be overly focused on the negative results. You kind of just got to move on to the next one and do the best you can. So
on to the next one. On to the next one.
We're gonna do Panthers Oilers talk, but let's rifle through some stuff that's going on around the league right now. Well, the draft combine's going on right now, but like they haven't really been doing much social for that.
Well, yeah, I was wondering, like, this is normally around the time, and I think we already kind of know a little bit, but this is normally around the time we get some sense about where teams are leaning and stuff around the draft combine. So I do wonder if we're going to get some more insider stories maybe later this week amongst who the Hawks are leaning towards. But well, I don't know if we're going to love that news. But.
I feel like all the content I've been seeing is just content from the 2014 combine of like, you know, obviously the top 4 picks from that year all playing in the Stanley Cup Final again this year. But like I keep seeing pictures and videos of Sam Bennett not being able to do a pull-up. And it's like, all right, can I see these kids right now? Also, a big story that's going on that I feel like we haven't touched on too much on the program is what's going to unfold here with the Dallas Stars. Obviously, a lot of news coming out about how the players there were not happy with the way DeBoer not just pulled Ottinger. I think a lot of those guys understood
his comments afterwards.
It was the comments afterwards in the closing press conferences that rubbed guys the wrong way, and so. It does seem like there's going to be big changes to Dallas. I keep hearing that. Yeah. Major changes coming. I mean, you got...
Kevin Weeks hinted it too on X, and he's normally not wrong. So, but yeah, it's just comments like, it was Jake Ottinger lost those games. Like it's a team effort, my guy. And if anything, he was a big reason why they were in the first place. Yeah. So it's like definitely won't be putting that at him.
Maybe these depth guys that you've put all this trust into, this elite forward group that like none of them could score a goal. Maybe that was, something.
It's not the first time we've seen this with DeBoer and goalies too. I think he and Fleury had a bit of a rough time at the end of the Vegas tenure, which obviously led to him finding out he's traded on Twitter to the Blackhawks. Blackhawks watching Marc-Andre Fleury, but
shout out.
I do wonder, I mean, that does seem to be where DeBoer is able to develop guys and get far, but he's never been able to clear that hump and get to the final. So we'll see what the Stars do there, if they stick with him or if they go elsewhere. And you think a guy like that hits the market. There's not many teams left, looking for a coach, and one of them actually just is off the table now. Depends. We'll get to that, but wonder if where you go. If
also like you hear like big movement or major changes, and it's like. I think everybody's just automatically assuming it's something to do with DeBoer, or it's not going to be Ottinger. You're not going to sign him to the extension and then trade him right away just because of that. But like also like Jamie Benn and Matt Duchene's contracts being up, like maybe it's.
How much Sagan is he up with too?
No, I think Sagan's still got a couple more years left on the contract. But so maybe it's roster moves, but we'll obviously be monitoring and covering it over the next month or so on the show.
Yeah, DeBoer Rushmore might be sticking around. I think he and Brindamore. I think if Brindamore's sticking around, I'm sure he will too. But yeah, obviously the Stars have a lot of question marks after that disappointing conference final.
I do. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if DeBoer gets fired. Like, I do think pulling the goalie. First of all, I saw so many people, like so many like hockey analysts that know the game a lot better than me, say that they have no problem with it. As a dumb fan that knows nothing about the game, it doesn't you can't rationalize that to me. You're pulling your best player because he let in two goals on the first two shots. Like, okay, is Casey Smith really going to give you
to that live on the live stream? Like, what on the earth are they doing? Are they just conceding defeat here? Like, what was that
That's
decision?
what it feels
like
like
that's a
to
fireable
me.
offense, man. Like, I saw obviously all the pictures of the Patrick Ross situation in Montreal too. Very reminiscent of that. He was just kind of used as a scapegoat there, a message sending move, but clearly it didn't pan out.
Didn't
there.
work out.
It was a bold move strategy that didn't pan out.
That's
yeah.
a move that you
kinda
make in sports.
yeah.
This is not just a hockey thing. That's a move. That's a decision you make in any major pro sport. And if it doesn't work out, you get fired. It's
get
like
canned.
this is an elimination game in the Western Conference Finals. Like your back is against the wall. I understand maybe you do that in a game 3 of the second round.
Not game 5 elimination.
This is do or die.
That's it.
Like that. I thought that decision was absolutely ridiculous. And then doubling down on the post game conference, the press conference was absolutely diabolical, saying that he's lost 6 of 7. It's
the defense didn't show up.
Jake Ottinger is really the problem here for sure.
He's won them plenty of games single-handedly this time of year.
He was amazing this playoff series until this last series against Edmonton, which I guess maybe that's fair. That's where DeBoer's coming from. He got lit up. Edmonton dominated this fucking team. Like, what was Jake Ottinger supposed to do? The guys in front of him got absolutely worked across 5 games. Like,
he was a big reason why they beat the Avs, and he out-goalied what the hell Connor Hellebuck. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah. So don't understand that. We'll monitor that. It'll be really interesting to follow.
Yeah, it's just like if it's not him, then what's the backup option there? Because like everybody's kind of gone now. There's very few options left on the table. So, but again, it's something we'll monitor as it goes along. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then what else we got here? The Chicago Steel named Scott Gomez head coach, which is cool. I'm excited for the Steel, and hopefully we can I don't know, maybe catch games over the next couple of years now that they're going to be moving to Chicago.
Well, they're
out
actually
of the
playing in
burbs.
Chicago, not the Chicago Island area. So, like Charlie said there, and the guest appearance there, it's good for the Hawks. Really, it's they'll just have an inside look, the development of that team, and that's obviously that organization's been rolling in the USHL in terms of developing, prospect talent and things like that. So, yeah, Gomez obviously, a lot of NHL experience, so should be a good coach for them. And we should get some Chicago Steel games, right? That'd be kind of fun, extra content in CHR. So, yeah, for sure. Fifth Third Arena, yeah, my old home in high school hockey. Yeah,
shout out to Justin's old home,
St. Ignatius. That's right. Yeah.
I mentioned it in the Charlie Roumeliotis interview, but Brock Nelson got extended by the Colorado Avalanche. I believe the number is 7.5 AAV for 3 years until 27-28.
$7.5 million for 2025 to 2028. Brock Nelson, what are we doing here?
I understand you want your center depth. You want the center position nailed down if you're going to be going on playoff runs. I get it. I understand it.
I didn't even notice the guy. Didn't even score a goal in that series. I did not notice Brock Nelson a single time in an Avs uniform.
He really was. I didn't think he was that effective. I agree with you. He was on the first power play a lot too, and it just like I don't think he was super effective on that either. And also something that I like first thing when I saw that, and I'm like, gee, 7.5, 3 years. Okay. What's the Avs cap situation? It's not looking great. Look, I know people keep saying that like the cap's going up. They've got 3 left wingers that are all unrestricted free agents. They got 3 UFA left wingers. So it's like, okay, yeah, you got 4 of these centers nailed down, but who's playing on the left side of the, you got Drew in, you've got VC, and you've got Kivi Ranta, all UFAs. And then Parker Kelly's got 1 more year left on his deal, but it's obviously not as big of a deal as those other 3. But
yeah, a lot of big names there.
Yeah, I don't know what Colorado's going to do, and also what happens with Natchez. He's got 1 year left. I've heard some Twitter rumblings, and maybe they're false rumors, but they're rumors nonetheless. So I'm going to bring them up on this on the show. That maybe Natchez hasn't been thrilled with his time in Colorado. I think he really liked the room in Carolina. And so maybe
didn't he want out?
No, I think he just wanted a bigger role and more money, and so he's getting paid 6.5 for this next season. But then he's a UFA after this season, so it's like, are you going to be able to? That seems like it's inevitable that he is going to leave. That's how it feels to me. He's not going to be making 6.5 on his next deal.
Yeah, that's going to be something to navigate there, because I always thought, if Avalanche are going to win that deal in the long run, if they could lock that guy up as a part of their core, they could still achieve success there. But if he's gone, then after a year, that would be a swing and a miss right there. Yeah, I don't know. That'll be something to navigate. Yeah,
maybe a potential guy
be throwing $7.5 million at Brock Nelson. I don't know.
Maybe a potential guy for the Chicago Blackhawks to go after next year.
We'll have to change his number, 88. But he's a fast, speedy guy, amongst the fastest in the league. I think he fit in pretty well in that forward core. Yeah, it must be said, 26, 27. Yeah, look out for that.
I agree. And he's not as small. I believe he's not like thick, but I think he's taller. I don't know what his height is, but
he's thick. Yeah.
No, he's not thick. Don't do thick talk right now. And then the Penguins, and finally some breaking news that isn't Tyler Bartuzzi.
We should have asked Charlie about Tyler Bartuzzi. Damn, we missed one. Wonder his thoughts are on that.
Yeah, that's exactly what we should have been asking Charlie Roumeliotis.
We didn't even bring up the dog, Charlie. That's all right. Swing and a miss.
The Pens hire head coach Dan Muse. I don't know. Yeah, good for the Penguins. Some good coaching experience. He was with the USA U18s and like the younger teams, and then he was an assistant for New York for a couple years. So yeah,
Predators.
Kind of just feels like the Rangers and the Pens are just doing a little bit of a swapsies here.
And he won a championship with the Chicago Steel in 2017. We're just talking about them, assistant in college hockey for a few years at Yale and Sacred Heart. So yeah, he's been around, a good experience, kind of a fresh face, which you like to see, right? His first gig at head coach. So we'll see how that goes for Pittsburgh. There, obviously, that's a team that a lot of question marks around them and where they go from here, right?
But that kind of makes you think Pittsburgh's going like rebuild.
You would think, the first time head coach, right? You would think that's where they go.
Yeah. I'm still being told by people in chat that that there aren't going to be a lot of teams falling off this year, and
I don't know
a lot of these teams keep making moves that would suggest maybe they're going in a newer, fresher, younger direction.
Yeah.
Normally leads to sliding down the standings in the old NHL. So,
dude, I'm shocked we didn't even we didn't bring up Gavin McKenna with our Charlie discussion, man. We need to have a part 2 of Charlie Roumeliotis. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I think there's going to be quite a few teams, conveniently dropping off next year. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Panthers Oilers game 1 tonight in Edmonton. Finally, we've waited months for this. We've waited. I feel like I've been waiting my whole life, even though it's only been 6 days.
It's been the longest wait for a cup final ever. 6 days. We had to wait a week for this. Is this the longest? I'm trying to think. Is this the longest in your lifetime that we had to wait between conference finals and cup? Because it feels like it.
It might be. I don't have that information on the top of my. I can't just pull that one out of my back pocket.
It just feels like it.
It feels like a long time.
Yeah.
The Florida Panthers are coming in at slight underdogs. They are even money, plus 100. Edmonton Oilers minus 120 favorites. I think this game is super important.
Is it a must-win game? I'm just joking.
Do I want to say? I really do think these first 2 games are massively important for the Edmonton Oilers. They can't be tracing the series against this Florida team, because I do think they've gotten significantly better than last year. But yeah, I think it is super important for the Oilers to have strong performances in the first 2 games here, more important than it is for the Florida Panthers to do so, and that's my humble opinion. We've got some stats here, Justin, that I don't think we really got through all of on the last show. One stat that I saw that's really interesting is that of all the teams, there have been 8 other teams other than this year's Edmonton Oilers that lost the first 2 games of the playoffs and then made it to the Stanley Cup Final. There's 8 others throughout the history of the NHL that have done so. All 8 of them have won the Stanley Cup.
Oh, wow. There's another stat there that goes in the Oilers' favor, man. And they haven't lost. They've lost as much games since then as those first 2, which just tells you how much of a role they've been on. So, yeah, I don't know, man. Those Oilers, Better watch out.
Yeah, and then Chris Knobloch is the 6th coach in NHL history to make the finals in his first 2 seasons as head coach. That's pretty gnarly.
Not too shabby.
There's obviously the McDavid narrative with Sid and Gretzky of, getting to the Cup for the first time, losing to that team, then getting back the next year and
I understand
beating
it
that
now.
team.
Yeah.
There's it does seem very
All the
script
scripts, all the
writers are
stats
cooking.
definitely seem to suggest and go in the favor of the Oilers, it must be said
And
here.
for that reason, the Florida Panthers are going to win this series in 6 games.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, my pick is Oilers in 7. I feel like this is I've said this before, but this is the real dictionary definition of a 7-game series. Everybody's saying it, right? These 2 teams are so even. Feels like destiny for both. They're both better. Last year went 7 games. You tell me this year is going to go 7 games. I feel pretty confident. I hope so. We had to wait this long for this Cup final. I hope it stretches as long as humanly possible. Maybe we can get the first 8-game Cup final. I don't know. You never know.
Yeah, give us as much of this Stanley Cup final matchup because it really does feel like an emerging dynasty versus the potential GOAT getting his first big,
This could be a passing of the torch moment, right? It kind of feels like it a little bit.
From Florida to passing the torch from who to who?
Well, I mean, Florida won last year, so it'd be passing the torch to Edmonton if they took the
Well,
win.
I thought maybe you were referring to like Sid to McDavid or something. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, that too. I was kind of that's kind of also what I was alluding to there. The generational players and win their first cups. So, yeah, there's a lot of fun narratives to watch here, and I think that's just what makes this final so intriguing. The amount of storylines. I mean, we've been breaking this down, previewing this matchup for a week now. And we haven't run out of anything to talk about. Just tells you how much buzz there is around this matchup and why you should be there for the live stream tonight, man. It's going to be absolute cinema. Are we all going to be there? I think we're all going to be there, right? This whole squad together, the whole gang.
I think so. I'm going to be there.
I'm going to be there. Yeah. So, oh god, it's going to be so much fun. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just such an exciting series. It's like McDavid's the best player ever. Like he is the most talented player ever but to be considered a great, you have to win. And he hasn't done it this far into his career. And it's like, if not now,
Year 10.
when?
Yeah. He's kind of reached that point where it's like, okay, the waiting game's kind of over here. Now it's your time, right?
And
this is your time.
And then on the other hand, you've got the Florida Panthers who, getting back to the Stanley Cup Final for the 3rd year in a row, staring in the face of going back to back. They really have the opportunity to cement themselves as one of the greatest teams of all time. And I really think they have the runway to do that. Like I do see this as a potential dynasty if it's not considered that yet.
You got to win multiple cups to be considered a dynasty in today's NHL. Yeah.
They've got all these guys locked, pretty much all of them. Obviously, I know Bennett, Ekblad, whatever. They've got so many of these guys locked up for the next few years. So it's like, these are the opportunities. Like, if you lose this one and then win another one in a couple years, it's like, it hurts. We know it as Blackhawks fans, like 2014, like to get that close.
Oh, that was the most heartbreaking loss of those years, man. So, I mean, for Panthers, I mean, it's not like it's a must win per se, because I do think this team will be around and will be back. But you get these opportunities, you never know what's going to go away too, right?
Yep.
It can happen when you least expect it.
Yep.
So when you get these opportunities, you got to take advantage of them. I think this is a group that's too good to win. You think too good to win just one. I know that sounds a little like cliche, but it's like those Bruins teams only won one. You could argue they probably should have won more. And just this squad, this loaded team, they have all the facilities to go on a bit of a run here and create another modern day dynasty, like you just said, and take the Florida mantle from Tampa Bay here and create their own little run. So I see no reason why they can't, but I just think this Oilers team just feels inevitable, man.
I'm just so pumped for the Stanley Cup Final. Yeah. Like it's the rematch. It's going to be so exciting. One team is going to be absolutely jubilant and the other is going to be absolutely heartbroken. And it doesn't get better than this. It doesn't get better than the Stanley Cup Final. It doesn't get better than a sequel and a rematch of two teams that absolutely deserve to be here.
This is tough because it really feels like a year where both of them deserve to win. Like you almost wish both of them could win.
Yeah.
But Highlander reference, there can be only one. There can be only one. So a couple other crazy stats here, by the way. I don't think we've alluded to any of these. Not only are the Florida Panthers in the, obviously the NHL Stanley Cup Final, but their Calder Cup affiliate, the Charlotte Checkers, formerly of the Hurricanes, now they're the Panthers affiliate. They're in the Calder Cup Final for the AHL. So I believe that's the first time that's happened in the same season since 2008, Pittsburgh and the Scranton Penguins from The Office. So pretty impressive there. Yeah.
The Scranton Penguins.
Yeah, I know Michael Scott's a big fan of the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins in The Office, I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Okay, so
I had to get some pop culture references in today. I don't think I really said much today, so we'll have more in store for the live stream tonight for sure.
It is always funny when you like toss in like a reference like that at the end of what you're saying and then toss it over to me.
Like, I leave you off of that. I'm not good at transitioning.
I'm like, all right. Michael Scott, Office, Scranton Penguins.
Where do I go from here?
Speaking of the Scranton Penguins, the Pittsburgh Penguins hired. No, I'm just kidding. With bad transitions in mind, let's talk more about Game 1 tonight.
Yes.
I'd assume if you think the Oilers are winning the series in 7, I'd imagine you think they're going to win Game 1.
Well, I'm going to say, man, it's like that's for me like the big thing I look at because last year obviously the Panthers had home ice and that was the difference maker for them. Oilers nearly come back 3-0, but that Game 7 was at home for Florida and they took advantage. I think for Edmonton, you need to. I don't think you could do last year again though. I don't think you could be coming from behind, right? I think for the Oilers, you have to at least have a split. And if anything, I think you don't have to go up to all these first 2 games, but I do think that would put the Panthers in a really tough position. So I'm not going to flat out say Game 1's a must win for Edmonton, but I would say this game feels more important for them to win than Florida, if that makes sense.
The pressure's always going to be on the home team.
Exactly. You got to take advantage of this. Here's another stat on that. None of these 2 teams have had home ice until now, right? The Panthers haven't had home ice all playoffs, and that's going to continue, and the Oilers haven't until now. So that's kind of interesting, too. I believe that's the first time that's happened in a while, or if ever. So that's something to take advantage of, too. But yeah, the Oilers have been so good at home there. That crowd's been rocking, and obviously we teed up on the Monday show, right? That it's going to be absolutely electric there. So I think for the Oilers, got to take advantage of that. Yeah.
I do. So many people have been talking about the home ice thing, and I understand that it is important in the playoffs and especially in the Stanley Cup Final. And I think that's true for every team except the Florida Panthers. This team this team plays better when their backs are against the wall, when they're the underdog, because I've talked about it so many times on the show. It feels like they like want it so bad. They want to be like counted out. It's like this weird thing they have all in their heads. And so I think this is just like, when I look at this series, man, I'm just like, this is so Florida Panthers to come in and win. Everybody thinking that it's destiny for Edmonton, and then you're just going to have Sam Bennett be an absolute asshole for 6 games.
Dude, that's the weird thing of this series, because it feels like the Panthers should be the overdog, and yet from all the narratives and even the sports book, no, like it seems like they're treating the Panthers as the underdog. They're the defending champs. Like they're the best team in hockey. I'd say you're the best team in hockey until you lose, the cup, right? So I don't know until you have that taken away from you. So that's the interesting thing of this series. So somehow Oilers have found a way to kind of reverse the trend. And is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? Like you just said, that could play into the Panthers' hands, if anything, right? If anything, sometimes they seem to play better on the road, crazy enough. Not a lot of teams work like that, but you look at their record in the road in these playoffs, it's something. Yeah.
Yeah, and the series line has continued to move. It's Oilers are minus 125 favorites, and I don't know, maybe sometimes I pay too much attention to the sports book, but
a little bit.
Yeah, I think in a Stanley Cup Final rematch, in a matchup that is so close like this one is, I don't know. It just feels like the line moving towards the Oilers is more so about all the action that's coming in on the Edmonton Oilers, and less so the book actually thinking that they think they're going to win.
Okay.
But yeah, I don't know. I do think that Edmonton wins tonight, which pains me.
But
to
you
say,
have the Panthers in 6, don't you?
Yeah, and so I think they're going to split, and so that's kind of like what my predictions completely relying on. Is
Panthers win both at home, Oilers Game 5, then Cats Game 6. That's what you have.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's just the path I see. And so, they need a split. I wouldn't be surprised if they won Game 1, Florida, because this is just totally like a spot.
Everybody seems to expect Edmonton tonight. It must be said. The sports book especially seems to. Everybody and their mothers, you like to say, saying Edmonton. So that means it could be Florida. I see your point. I
also saw somebody in chat, I forgot who it was. Maybe it was Russell who asked, chat, who do you guys got tonight? And I don't think a single person picked the Florida Panthers to win tonight.
Really?
So
not one?
Don't love that if you are on the Edmonton Oilers side of things.
But I think something I alluded to before, every team the Oilers have faced in these playoffs have stacked up on each other and gotten better. And, you start the Kings, right? That was their toughest series, was the Kings. That 2-0. After that, it was a sweep within a sweep. Then it was the Knights. So surely the Knights will give them a better battle. Nope, 5 games. Oh, surely the Stars will make it a 7-game series. If anything, the Stars should be the favorites.
True.
Nope.
True.
And now we're playing the Panthers while they're defending champs, right? Where everybody's saying this could be a long series. Could it be yet again that this could be a quicker series than we expect? Yeah.
It's a good point.
I don't know.
I'm so excited. I'm excited to watch Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl cook. I'm excited to see this Florida Panthers team. I think this series is going to be super physical, super chippy, nasty, fast. Oh my gosh, I'm just
It's gonna have everything. There's nothing missing here, man.
And also, it's like we've like seen normally in the playoffs, especially as these series go along, you start to see unders. Both these teams have just been blowing everybody out of the water. Both these teams have been scoring 5-6 goals a game.
So what does that mean for this series? Like, are we going to get high scoring games? Are we going to get low scoring games?
I think it's going to be unders.
Close?
I think it's going to be unders. I think the public's been feasting too much on all these overs throughout the playoffs. I think we're going to see a lot of unders. I'm seeing that this line, normally these games are set at 5.5. Normally playoff games this late in the year are set at 5.5 total goals. It's at 6.5 right now, man. And I don't know. I would, that's probably going to be my main and do under 7.5 and sprinkle in like a no goal in the first 5 minutes or a no goal for like a fourth liner or something. But, I can't imagine. It's the Stanley Cup Final. Both these teams rely heavily on their defense. I think that they're both going to be responsible, not trying to be the ones who make the mistakes. I think we're going to see careful hockey, and I'm going to be liking unders, I think, throughout this series if they're going to keep setting the line.
You know what kind of type of hockey we could be seeing in this series? We could be seeing a little bit of that USA, Canada, Four Nations-esque hockey here.
Give me that. I'll take that all day. I don't care about, like, the 2-1 games. Like,
no, those are cinema, man.
Oh, my gosh. It doesn't get better than that.
Yes, and I really think we could be seeing that here.
And that's what, hopefully, this is going to be, just the game at the highest level
And
with
you know
the
it's
best
going to be
players.
physical as hell, man. Oh, could you imagine if there was like a tilt to start this one? And you don't see that a lot in the playoffs, but that wouldn't shock me, honestly. These two teams don't necessarily love each other either. There's a lot of history there, a lot of unfinished business, and I just see things develop in this game 1-2 as the series goes on. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially with these teams. It's always fun to watch. And the Oilers haven't backed down. Like, they faced a lot of teams kind of, maybe not like sort of similar to the Panthers, where it's like they try to get under your skin, but the Oilers haven't backed down these playoffs. Like, I do think they can play that game and stick with them from that regard. Yeah.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
I'm just so excited, man. I feel like we've been talking about this for months. And now
don't have to wait anymore.
Now that it's finally here,
Yeah.
as Justin already mentioned and I mentioned, stream tonight. Obviously, we're going to be streaming all of these. It's going to be cinema. We're going to be fired up.
Absolute cinema. I can't wait for this live stream. Oh, it's gonna be electric. Just past 800 subs, by the way, and let's get. I think we can get close to 900 by the end of this final. Yeah, I think that's possible. Yeah, let's get there. Yeah.
That'd be nice. Okay. Any other thoughts from you?
How about the 4 former Blackhawks in these finals, eh? Got Seth Jones on Florida, Gustav Forsling on Florida. And then at Edmonton, you got Matthias Janmark, Corey Perry, and of course, their GM is Stan Bowman. So, which former Blackhawks do we want to see come out on top of that is the question here. Yeah.
Yeah, you've really built. I feel like you don't want to experience joy sometimes. Like, I feel like you just want to keep painting this in your head as Stan Bowman versus Seth Jones to keep yourself from truly enjoying it. We'll break out of that. The games will be fun.
Yes.
You'll stop thinking about Stan Bowman.
I'd rather watch others fail than see myself succeed.
Fair enough.
I just got that Sigma grind set mentality. I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, let's get to a few more of these stats here we put in these notes, may as well. Do you want to get to the nationality breakdown of the Oilers and Panthers? There's some fun stuff here. Oilers got 17 Canadians, 17. 4 Swedes, 2 Americans, 1 Finnish, 1 German, and 1 Russian. Panthers got 8 Canadians, 4 Finns, 4 USA, 2 Czechs, 2 Russia, 2 Sweden, 1 Germany, 1 Latvia. There's a little too many Canadians on the Canadian team. You know what? I think I might be bought back in here. I might have to go for Florida here. I'll be honest. I do want Florida because I prefer them as a team. I'm not like as big a Florida fan as you are. I want Florida, but like I would be cool with Edmonton this year. Unlike last year, like it just feels inevitable with those two. So a part of me wants to see that Canada Cup shot continue just for the memes and the jokes, but another part of me is like I'm kind of sick of those conspiracy theories. So like let's just end it. And McDavid deserves his ring. So anyway,
yeah. I'll be happy with McDavid getting his ring. This year,
this will be the year.
I was heavily rooting for Florida last year, mostly because I had like hundreds of dollars on them, which I don't this year. But this year it feels different. Like I really do want to see Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl lift the cup.
Yeah.
And Yeah, it's kind of like the same reason why I started loving LeBron, because I hated LeBron when I was a kid, because he was fucking up the Bulls when the Bulls were good with like Derrick Rose and Carlos Boozer and Joakim Noah and all those guys. And then as the Bulls team started to fall off a little bit, I was like, wait, this guy might be the GOAT. I'm gonna root for the guy that I got to see be the GOAT. And so I feel the same way about Connor McDavid. I want the guy that I saw the entire time be the GOAT, and I want it to be undisputed. So I can't help but root for Connor McDavid.
I think, 10 years from the year he was drafted, right? Won the Four Nations gold this year, the game-winning goal. How about a McDavid game-winning cup goal? That'd be electric. We have a ways to go there. I think the potential Game 7 wouldn't be till June 20th. They'll have to stretch these cup games out, but I do hope this series stretches as long as possible. I really want to get to know these two teams and feel it out and just see as much cup hockey here as possible. I think that would be electric. A few more notes here, because obviously this is a rematch of last year. Teams are mostly similar, but there are some differences. Some players on both squads that weren't there last year that are now there. Oilers got Arvidsson, Emberson, Frederick, Max Jones, Kasper Kapanen, John Klingberg, Podkolzin, Jeff Skinner, and Jake Wallman. On the Cats, we got Jesper Boquist, brother of Adam Boquist, Hawks legend. Seth Jones, speaking of Hawks legends, Brad Marchand, Noshik, Nico Sturm, Nate Schmidt, and Vitek Vanacek. So we got some new players in the mix this year.
Mostly like bottom six guys that you see get mixed up, but I mean, I didn't think it was the case for Edmonton coming into this postseason. I thought they got worse, but so many of those guys you just listed have stepped up in big ways, and they've gotten the depth scoring, and the defense has looked really solid despite what you would expect going down the list of names.
There was a question mark.
It has been.
It's been there. So I think it can match up with Florida from that regard. That's the thing. There are some areas last year I feel like the Oilers didn't have an answer to the Panthers. I think this year they do have an answer to most of those concerns. So I think they match up better this year. That's a big part of why I give them that slight narrow edge. I think they'll understand it now.
That's fair enough. But I do just think the Florida Panthers are a better team from last year.
That's fair. They are. I think they're both better, right? Like you said, I think they're both better. So that's what makes predicting this final so tricky, man. I feel like I change my mind every day in terms of who I think is going to win. I don't think I'm alone there. I think kind of everybody is. Maybe not you.
Yeah. No, well, I mean, my heart and my head are separated. That's like the conflicting interests for me. That's the tricky part. It's not that I don't think the Florida Panthers lose, dude. I'm not going to bet against a which is that's the predicament.
Please betting against the Oilers again.
Oh god, dude. Oh man, it's like I'm either not betting against what I see as a potential future dynasty and a team that I think is going to cement themselves as one of the greatest of all time versus
the Oilers could be next in line there. You know what I mean?
Versus Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid, who I think is the best duo of all time, and Connor McDavid, who I think is the best player of all time. So it is tough, but I've got to make a prediction, so I'm going to Florida.
There's a bit of a pattern on my end too. I predicted Oilers to win against the Kings. They did. I said they lose against the Knights. They won. Obviously, I said they lose against the Stars, and they won. And the last time I picked them to win, they did. So we'll see if that matches up there. Yeah. I'm not betting against them again. Yeah, Oilers, baby.
All right, we will see. Maybe we'll get a little fired up about it as the
let's
series
get a bit of a
goes on.
rivalry going
but that's
here,
the thing.
right?
It's so hard for me to like play heel and go full Florida Panther when it's like that's not where my head's at. Like I love Connor McDavid. I want to see Leon Draisaitl win a Stanley Cup. So it's hard. It's hard for me to be
and
like,
I like that
You're
Cat
wrong.
squad. Like I really don't like. I like McDry, but I'm not really a big Oilers guy. More of a McDry guy than an Oilers guy. And also it's hard to root for a Canadian team in that like interesting Oilers fan base. So there's a lot of reasons for me not to root for the Oilers too, and Stan Bowman obviously as well. But Panthers got Seth, like you said. So pick your poison,
dude. I do see the route for the Oilers winning this. Like I think it's going to be closer than last year. Even though I know last year went to Game 7, so it can't really get much closer.
Well, it didn't go to overtime. How about this year? We see a Game 7 overtime.
I just want a couple of overtimes. You know?
We haven't had overtime. We didn't have a single overtime in the conference finals. Let's get some overtime hockey back. Let's get some extra innings. Hopefully tonight.
I just want to see. I just want to see some heroes. I want to see big stories, viral moments.
I want to see some hate. I want to see some tilts
That too.
and some clashes and some chippiness. I think we're going to get quite a bit of that. This has all the makings of what could be the best Cup final since the Hawks Cup finals, right? Yeah.
I honestly agree. I genuinely agree with that take. So, Yeah, pump for this one.
Yep.
Pump for the stream tonight. Pump for the rest of the streams. Friday show. Yeah, I think we might have done it. Do you have anything else?
I think we're good. We will be there. We will be there.
Awesome. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the program and enjoyed the interview with our guest, Charlie Roumeliotis. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell, and follow us on Instagram at Chicago Hockey Radio. And for you audio-only listeners who listen to us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and review on there. Thank you very much. It means a lot. We will see you tonight in just a few hours for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final.
W, Charlie.
Peace out.